This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial's set correctly to USAPrepares.com. And we're broadcasting 2 hours daily from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. Studio A. Information's on the website. And you may listen live, USAPrepares.com, on your phone, on the internet, and we broadcast on AM and FM stations. Nathan is producing the worldwide broadcast on GCN in Minnesota. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. With me is Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Welcome, Rick.
Morning. I know. And I have so many people now starting to contact me and turning me on to some very cool things. This video that we're going to talk about came in from several of my fans out there this last week. It's exceptional.
Yeah, today's broadcast centers on geoengineering, climate control, chemtrails, GMO foods, vaccines, all these bad things that they're doing to us. And we're going to be talking about your homework assignment. Your homework assignment from Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me is called Shade, S-H-A-D-E, the motion picture. It's 93 minutes in length. It is absolutely riveting. Riveting. There will be no excuses for not doing your homework. Shade, the motion picture.
Well, it's like the Zeitgeist movies, you know. It came in and is now asking questions that concern scientists. There are a league of concerned scientists. We're asking several years ago. I started concerning myself with chemtrails when they gave carte blanche to California and other places to just indiscriminately spray for the medfly and other kinds of crop varmints that would, reduce production. And it has gone from that place of just putting insecticides in your food to something much more insidious.
Right. And class, this hour and a half video is absolutely so important because it encapsulates all of the major bad things that are happening to us. And Rick, we have a student. His name is Dave. He comes to all of our meetups, and he asked me repeatedly the same question. And I've been at a loss to give him an answer. And that's why he asked me repeatedly. I mean, it's not like every minute, but maybe every 5 meetups, he'll say, Vinny, how do I convince people about chemtrails? How do I convince people about GMO manipulation? How do I convince people about vaccines? They just don't want to believe it. Well, this is a really good start. This video we're talking about, Shade, S-H-A-D-E, the motion picture, 93 minutes on YouTube. There's a link on the website, USAPrepares.com, page 1. And if you go to USAPrepares.com, you'll find it right on page 1. You can click on it. It'll take you right to the video. And I suggest that you share that link with everyone you know. It is really that important. So, Rick, I'm not sure how long this took to put this video together, but it's truly outstanding. It really is a theater quality production, if I say so. I mean, don't you think it's that good?
Well, yeah, that it's got a lot of experts from a lot of different fields giving their opinion on what they think is going on, and it's about time the media picks it up.
Mm-hmm. Rick, I want to share with our class that we have changed at usaprepares.com from being just preparedness and survival. We've added some components to it, and they're major components. We're teaching what's happening, why it's happening, and what to do about it. And we've become activists. We've become activists to protect what we have and to return what's being stolen from us. And we're protecting our rights and our freedoms and our property. And we're teaching how to think and how to say no and why to say no. And we're sharing our observations as farmers, as scientists, what we see when we look up and what's happening all around us. And we're asking questions. And we're asking questions right on this broadcast. We're asking questions at the meetups. We're asking questions at the Get Prepared Expo. And here are some of the questions that we've asked. And a lot of these questions have been answered in this video. And the video was published on October 15th. So, of 2013. So it's recent. And
yeah,
Rick,
it became available to the public. And,
okay.
you know, the whole thing has nothing to do, it's barium oxide. That's the one now that we're concerned about. Now, the aluminum is in there. It's the barium oxide and what it's doing. I, a couple of days ago, came up with a question, you know, as a Navy vet, the ability to go to a war memorial, like your thing last week, where we talked about that, and I didn't have the right to do that they were actually expending money to put up barricades so that people in wheelchairs had no access, and then being told that the government's out of money, and then looking up in the sky, and there are 27 chemtrails, each one representing a minimum of $1,000 an hour, 28 aircraft, 2-hour flights from Portland, and probably coming back, so that's another 2 hours. That's 4-hour flights, times 28, times $1,000. Who's paying for that? And why is it happening as of yesterday? And I don't get it. And so I picked up the phone. I called my daughter in Salem because she works for the government there, and she said, start with your local infrastructure. So I called the mayor. He did not return my call. I called the newspaper, and in the middle of asking the question, there was a local brownout. And then when the brownout was fixed and I called the reporter back, she was not available and did not return my call. Now, that's local. Where do I go to ask the question of who's paying for that when the government's supposed to be out of money? I don't think the movie Shade starts right off by saying nothing you think is the way it works is the way it works. Nothing. And it's true. It put it together from the aristocrats in Europe to this point of time now when they're organized. And remember, I said Fukushima was number one. I meant that. It still is. The bluefin tuna being pulled out of the bay in San Francisco as of yesterday are radioactive. Now, they're figuring the way it happens is that when a bluefin tuna is smaller, it settles in and around, Japan, and that now, as it gets older and bigger, then it ranges further, and that's what we've got now is radioactive fish from the Pacific Ocean. But chemtrails in our group of scientists has put that as number two of massive concern because it's killing our trees and it's doing something even more insidious. You know, the whole thing was about global dimming, and it started with Gore and his idea of global warming and how we needed to protect our environment by shading some of the sun back. Well, that's vitamin D. And, it's affecting everyone. And while you can supplement, now you need to eat your food with a Geiger counter. This is crazy. Sorry. Sorry about that, Vincent.
Rick, what you just said really needed to be said.
Well, it's a brave new world, and nobody is addressing these questions, and for good reason, because there is a small elite group that has taken possession of mankind. And whether you want to look at it as aliens or high-end bloodlines of Europe, whatever, the fact is the New World Order is most likely the Jesuits out of Rome battling China. Now, we're in the middle of a war going on that's affecting our health and is causing genetic damage. Oh, well, that's okay because there's too many people in the world. It's not right.
Rick, you mentioned vitamin D.
Yeah.
Dr. Norman Shealy, a friend of yours, a friend of mine, has been to meetups, he's been to the expos, he's been on the radio with us. He's been saying that we really need to increase our intake of vitamin D3, liquid
he's
sunshine.
Even more
vitamin,
explicit, just the
vitamin D3.
Yes.
He has noticed that is a deficiency that we have, and without it, we get sicker and sicker and sicker. And
well, it's
I've
immune
asked him,
system. It's all of that. That's the sun, your father, if you will,
right.
bequeathing onto your genetics and DNA.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've asked him point blank on the air, are we talking about vitamin D3 being liquid sunshine? And he said, yes. So Dr. Shealy is an advocate of more sunshine. Rick, we're not getting enough sunshine because of these chemtrails, which are in fact reflecting back out toward outer space solar rays. So we're not getting it.
Even in the movie, they suggest that if you're going to go outside and it's raining, that you carry an umbrella because you do not want that particulate matter falling on you as rain. Now imagine if every one of you out there gathered your rainwater and had it assayed. Spend $60 and find out what's in it. I think
hold that thought, Rick. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Class, Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. And Rick, we're talking about the particulate matter in rainwater. And I'd like to stay on this for just a minute or two because we are asked so often, let's get some rain barrels and let's hook them up to our gutters and leaders, and we'll have 55 gallons at a time of rainwater. Class, what Dr. Richard Allen Miller said is so important. If you look at your roof, let's say you have a steel roof, okay? You're going to have dust and bird poop and dead insects and radioactivity from Fukushima. You're going to have all that on your steel roof. Now, steel roof will shed more of the particulate matter just by the wind blowing across it because it doesn't have as much surface area and as much nooks and crannies to hold that particulate matter as a composition roof, the kind of roofs that most of us have. Now imagine having that composition roof with the bird poop and all of the nasty stuff, the barium oxide, the aluminum oxide, all of that on your roof, and then the rain washing that down into your gutter, down your leader, and into your rain barrel, and then drinking that. It's a highly concentrated form of toxins, all mixed up in a soup. Rick, do you disagree or not?
You can no longer drink rainwater as it is. No, you can't do it. And that's that. Trying to control the weather from a military point of view, that means they can also control the crops. That means they can control what crops in what countries. That means that they can move the crops around as they choose for their own ends. And nothing is done for a single reason. That's where your false flag comes in, because everything is done for at least 2 reasons. So there it is.
So what we're talking about is...
And eat anything out of the Pacific Ocean. You can't even drink your rainwater anymore. At what level do you get uptight and say something about it on a personal level?
Okay, so the point of this broadcast, class, if we get to the very end of the second hour, the point of this broadcast, although we're saying it right now, is you need to stand up, you need to speak up, you need to stand out, you need to step out, you need to protest, you need to get involved in government, you need, even though you don't like it, even though government is corrupt, you need to become involved, you need to run for office, you need to say no, and you need to expose the corruption. And I have run for office. I am an elected committee man, and Mrs. Finelli is an elected committee woman for one of the 2 major crime syndicates in the United States of America. We are both members of the same syndicate, and we are elected representatives in our local area to find out what they're up to, what they're doing, and to protect our community from evil. So that's why I've become a member of one of the 2 largest crime syndicates in the United States of America. And I suggest that you run for school board office. And if your superintendent is accepting bribes from the federal government and accepting education directives that you don't like, then you fire the superintendent and you fire the principal. And as the school board...
The superintendent has a boss. He has a board of directors.
That's the school board. Yeah, that's the school board.
There it is.
Yeah, that's the school board. And class...
that can tell the superintendent what he can and can't do. That's the bottom line.
There you go. There you go. And if he doesn't understand English, then you fire him or her. So I ran for school board office, and I was defeated. But that was before anybody knew who I was in the community. I just moved here, and, you know, maybe only 30 people knew who I was. And so I was, I got 1/8 of the votes, but I was still defeated. And Rick, here's the problem with me running for office. I'd like to run for sheriff. I really would. I have my own gun.
Carry a gun.
I've got my own gun. But the reason it would be difficult for me to run for sheriff is there's this law that says that I would have to give up equal time to anyone who was running against me. So I'd have to turn our radio broadcast, our syndicated broadcast, over to a bunch of guys I don't like. That's a problem for me. So it's going to make it really difficult for me to run for office, but I'd love to. I would really love to, and clean up this mess we have in our county. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are going to be back. We're talking about geoengineering. What a mess. You won't believe it. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I are talking about geoengineering. And simply, Rick, if we were going to distill this down to its basic level, geoengineering is simply about people control, population control.
Yeah,
currently there are about 6.8 billion of us
geos,
on the planet.
And they're changing our genetics. You don't have the brightness that you did in your brain. You don't have the knowledge base of the classics that you were required. You don't speak Latin or have any concept of what Latin is regarding agriculture. I mean, it goes on and on in the dumbing down of America, and they're attacking us in the air that we're breathing, the water we are drinking, and the food we are eating. And it's all toward control of the masses, turning us into consumer
Rick, it's so hard.
What's that?
Consumer-sauruses. Well, it's very difficult for someone
Consumer-sauruses. That's
for someone listening to us for
the obesity in everybody is unprecedented. The idea of food choices and what's important in your mind's eye, what's happening? I have to ask.
Rick, if a new person were to listen to us right now that has not heard this kind of information, they would think we're absolutely loony. They would think we've lost our minds. You know, the government, come on, the government is actually out to reduce the population. The government is out to give us cancer. The government is out to reduce our IQs
and countries. This has gone beyond that, where, of course, you know, the first promise, the reason I have voted for Obama was, in the first place, was that he had promised that everything would have a GMO label on it. He has broken that promise. All of Europe, there's maps of it, have those labels in place. What is going on is that the United States now has become a third world country. Just watch what happens tomorrow with the earthquake drill, and watch how it's all going to change for you and how quickly it happens now. There's only one thing you can do, and that's like ask the local officials, start there, on who's paying for the chemtrails right now, and why are they continuing when the federal government is supposed to be broke?
Rick, if you look at some of the investment that's being made by some of the globalists, let's just pick on Warren Buffett, one of the richest people on the planet. Where has he put his money? Well, I'll tell you. He's invested in Lowe's, the home improvement place, right? Home Depot. Now, when you listen to this list, you will see that he's got his finger in every place that a person would be. Every single place. Just listen to this list. Lowe's, Home Depot, Comcast, that's a communications, company. United Health Group, Nike, General Electric, UPS, that'd be United Parcel Service, U.S. Bank Corp., that'd be U.S. Bank, Walmart, Visa, MasterCard, Wells Fargo, ExxonMobil, Intel, Viacom, Phillips 66, that's a petroleum company out here in the Midwest, Kraft, that's Kraft Foods, Media General, Costco, Viacom, IBM, CarMax, CVS Pharmacy, Dow Jones, and Moody's. And that's just to name a few. So Warren Buffett has his hands in investments that touch just about, I would say, 90% of Americans. You have to be living under a rock to not be touched by General Electric, UPS, Walmart. I mean, really, ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, Kraft. You really have to be living under a rock not to be touched by those companies. And he is investing in those. Now, why is that? Why is it? He's a globalist. Well, the real plan is to, and this is in their words, it's not my words. Ted Turner had said that he wanted to eliminate 95% of us. Now, some people are a little more nice to us. They only want to eliminate 75% of us. So are you one that wants to raise your hand and say, I'll go?
The whole thing's nuts. It's, and that concept of things that you want as opposed to things that you need, the concept of cheapest as opposed to best buy for dollar spent, that kind of thing. It used to be, for example, that American agriculture was the best by the words. Per dollar spent, you got more bang for your buck. Food-wise, whatever. That's all changed. It's a scary new world, And we have just been passed by, and your officials aren't even looking at the right problems.
Rick, I used to work for a Fortune 100 company back in the 1970s when I graduated the university. And the president of our company would meet with us, and we get a chance to see him in the cafeteria. And there were signs all over the corporate headquarters that talked about a single word, value. And the head of our company would preach how important value was. Value didn't mean the cheapest. Value didn't mean the very, very best, unless it was the best bang for the buck. He talked about the customer giving him the best value in the marketplace, so that for every dollar spent, the customer would get the best for that dollar. And that's what we did. And we were proud of it. But Rick, that's not what we do anymore. We're not concerned with value. We're concerned with cheap. And I can't tell you how many pens I have thrown out this morning in the studio, these giveaway pens that aren't worth having. You know, we used to, they're cheap. They're not worth having. So I have a wastebasket full of pens that click but don't write, or write but don't click, or skip. I mean, they're...
Or batteries that you can set your watch to. They've been by Mopar, they've been so designed that you can time it when it's going to crash. You know, the whole thing is about marketing and consumerism, and it's time that we rethink what the purpose of money and exchange is really all about.
Rick, when we look at this video, Shade, the motion picture, that class, that's your homework assignment. There's no reason.
Yeah, enjoy that one.
Yeah, there's class. There are
free versions of it everywhere. You'll find most of the links will be about trailers, but every once in a while you'll find a place where they actually have the video there, and then they say you can donate or something. I would use that as a springboard for approval.
Okay, Rick, we have the link to the full motion picture, 93 minutes of it, the full motion picture, right on the website. You're not breaking any laws. You're just going to YouTube where you can watch it. It was put up on October 15th this year. It has 23,000 views. 12 people disliked it. 355 liked it. I can't imagine what happened to those 12 people.
It went up yesterday or 2 days ago. You know, I mean, it just went up.
Yes, it's excellent, and we will accept no reason other than if you have died. Other than that, there's no reason to not watch this.
It's pretty convincing because it shows you the length, girth, and width of the problem. And the chemtrails is just only one part of what's going on in our society. And the problem is, you'll notice that while the government is all closed down with national parks and everything, somebody is funding today's chemtrail. There it goes. Watch for yourself,
Rick,
and then ask who's paying for it.
Rick, there used to be three classes. You know, there were the poor. I'm talking about in the United States. Let's say in the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. There used to be people who were just poor, and then there was the middle class, and then there was the upper class or the wealthy. And what's happening is the middle class is being extinguished. And if you don't think I'm serious, just look around. Just look around at your friends who are losing their homes, who have lost their jobs, who are working 2 or 3 jobs to just pay the bills where they used to actually be able to get along. So the middle class is being eviscerated. That being the case, we're going to 2 classes. Now, who would those 2 classes be? That would be the worker bees, and that would be the upper class. The wealthy, the ruling class.
Here's the bottom line. Education was how you changed the movie. Mm-hmm. And you could better yourself with your education. And it's been said that your education is the only thing you can take with you when you die. And so with that said, the impetus for getting and changing the movie is through education. And that's important. And we start with children and make them excited about what's going on, because they are, unfortunately, going to be the ones that change this movie. All of of us and our rainwater and all is pretty much already gone. We can question, but it isn't going to be us that changes this, unfortunately. It's going to be your children and education, the importance of education.
So there's the movement toward two classes. The middle class is being wiped out, and the children are the ones that we need to educate, and they need to pay attention to everything and learn as much as they can. And next week, it looks like Grace Thorne's class, Grace Thorne's 6th grade class.
I'm so excited. I am. That's so cool.
Is going to be back with us. That's the plan. Ryan, Oklahoma, Grace Thorne's class will be with us, asking questions of Dr. Richard Allen Miller. We'll be right back. Class, we've been talking about geoengineering, and we've been talking about how they, the ubiquitous they, would like to eliminate between 75 and 95% of us. I'm not volunteering to be one that's selected for elimination. I'm going to fight them all the way, including using this radio broadcast to do it. Rick, we're talking about genetic mapping also. They have mapped the genome. And not only that, Rick, they can tell whether we are a worker bee, a have-not, the worker class, or whether we're the ruling class by our genetic makeup.
Well, that's Gattaca, that movie. But, I have a concern here in terms of a war going on to somehow mutate man into something else. And they're doing it with our food and our air and our water. It is on all levels of the hologram. They're attacking us now. This is that paper, The New Directions in Mind Control. The whole thing is no longer about gizmos and microwave. We're talking about some fundamental basics on the weaponization of epigenetics. It's insidious.
Rick, I've been asking questions on this broadcast. I've been asking Dr. Shealy. I've been asking it at the meetups. I've been asking it at the expo. I've been asking people on the phone who call me. And the questions are you more tired than you were a while back? 6 months ago, 2 months ago, a couple years ago? Rick, everybody says yes. And, they pause and they think about it for a second. And they go, yeah, I am. And I challenge any of our listeners to answer that question for him or herself. Are you more tired? Do you have less energy? Or do you have less initiative? Do you have less get up and go, less stick-to-itiveness, the old word that they used back in the 1960s when I was in elementary school, stick-to-itiveness, staying with the task, staying with the project? Do you have less? I think the answer is going to be a resounding, overwhelming yes. We have less stick-to-itiveness, less energy, less drive. And it's so easy to put our minds in park. When we come home from work, put our minds in park, hit that remote on our TV remote, and just watch some mindless, mind-numbing folderol. I believe that it's just too easy, but it's too hard to read. And we'd like to know in pictures. We'd like to be entertained. We don't have a right to be entertained. And as you said, Rick, what we learn, what we study, what we commit to our memory is something that probably is one of the most difficult things to take away from us. So I think we need to learn, we need to research, we need to communicate with others, we need to find like-minded people. And Rick, I think that's why the meetups are successful. I think that's why people come to our meetups every Monday night. As a matter of fact, last Monday night, a gal came up to me and she said, "Oh boy, I missed 2 meetups. I'm in withdrawal." She literally came up to me said she was in withdrawal. And, this is not a teenager. This is a middle-aged person. I thought she was going to give me a hug and thank me for her meetup fix. I'm very serious.
I can just see you there, too. That's wonderful. Yeah, so, I enjoyed those when I was visiting. I look forward to them again. I hope they don't figure out a way to close you down there. It's getting out, talking about everybody.
Funny you mention that, Rick. Yeah, they are. They are trying to close us down. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I will be back on the other side of the top of the hour news and commercial announcements. We're talking about geoengineering. We're going to be telling you more about what's happening, why it's happening, and what you need to think about. USAprepares.com. Please don't touch that dial.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAprepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Thursdays are fun. They're always fun with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Hour number 2 of USAprepares.com. Rick, at the top of the hour news, there was a piece that said the Federal Reserve says there's economic growth. I wonder if they realize that message is being broadcast on USAprepares.com, and none of us believes that nonsense.
I'm watching a video while I was waiting on an ex-Navy SEAL that says the government, I sent you the link, it's Ben Smith, basically is suggesting that they're trying to provoke the veterans into doing something. The whole thing is inflammatory. And today at 10:17, they're going to do a worldwide alert on earthquakes, and I can only guess what's going to happen. That should be shortly for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's atomic time.
Are you going to climb under your radio and put your hands over your head?
No, actually, we're just going to keep going right through it. Hey, Rick, I don't believe you have ever heard this, but I'd like to share with our class one of the introductions that we use. At night, there are 3 broadcasters that take over a really powerful radio station here in Missouri. It's KUNQ, and it's known as Big Country 99, The Rooster. Now, it's an affiliate of Genesis, and I'd like to say to our other affiliates, I will be glad to do the same thing for all of our affiliates. And if you would like us to broadcast on your radio station or your favorite radio station where you live, AM or FM, please contact me, and I will contact the station and see if they're interested. But anyway, for 7 hours overnight, starting at 10 o'clock, there are 3 broadcasters who are taking over the airwaves in Missouri. And I'd like to share with you just this promotion. It's 60 seconds, and it will kind of tell you who we are and what our thought process is. And the reason I'd like to do this is I don't know how many really understand what we're up to at USA Prepares. Hold on just 1 second while I play this. Everyone all set? Pencils and paper ready? You may begin taking notes in 45 seconds. For the next 7 hours, the faculty of USAprepares.com radio network is at the controls of this broadcast. We are aware of the situation, and we are sounding the alarm. Our country has been hijacked by people with no moral compass, loose scruples, and an overwhelming sense of self-worth. Their greed seems endless, boundless, and they want what you've worked all your life for. They are so concerned with their own pleasures that they tend to neglect their spouses, their children, and their families. They are the root of the evil that stands between us and liberty. We're taking America back. And thank you for joining us. We have a lot of work to do. So let's get started. At 10 o'clock at night, I'm up first. Then, starting at midnight, Sam Bushman. Then, from 2 to 5 in the morning, Joyce Riley. Here we go. I'm Vincent Finelli. So there you have it. That's what that's our promo for 7 hours of nonstop broadcasting, the kind of broadcasting that you hear right here on this program. Rick, your thoughts?
Oh, I'm impressed. I'm proud to be part of it. Thank you. Well, no, I'm proud to be part of it. It's, I can bring in some of the sciences. We have to be concerned, and right now, I think I sent you another little tiny thing from Frank Zappa and his statement on freedom, and that's something I'll let you post. I'm going to try to see if I can't find it while I'm talking to you here. Frank Zappa was one of my favorites, and he talks about the importance of freedom, and it's one voice at a time that does it. And if you don't say what's on your mind, it won't happen. That's how it works.
Yeah, Frank Zappa was in a band called the Mothers of Invention. Rick, I don't know if I ever told you this, but he was one of my teachers.
He was a pretty cool guy, in my opinion. Really?
I've had some extraordinary teachers. Isaac Asimov, Carl Sagan, Frank Zappa. I mean, they're absolutely extraordinary individuals who were, who would step out, speak up, say no. And that's who they've trained me to become. Obviously, you've had some of the same teachers.
Well, here it is. The illusion, here I've got his quote. The illusion of freedom will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, they will just take down the scenery. They will pull back the curtains. They will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater. Frank Zappa.
Yeah, is an absolutely brilliant man. Rick, we're talking about geoengineering.
I'm sorry?
We're talking about geoengineering, and Rick, let's continue on with some of the visible signs, the symptoms that we can observe with geoengineering. And just, if we just stay with chemtrails for a few minutes, Rick, the strontium, the barium, the salt, they're using even salt. Bill Gates is an advocate of salt, and he's even funding spraying salt as an aerosol in the atmosphere to reflect the sunlight. These compounds, these chemicals, are landing on the earth and they're killing trees. There's evidence.
Yeah, there's that chemtrail, the movies. There's a thing, What in the World Are They Spraying? Is a video that everybody should watch, because they talk with U.S. Forest Service that are out in the middle of the forest. And I'm looking at a picture of one right now, and across the screen it says, "Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world." Mm-hmm. And that's the power of Possibly Radio, where every single person that's listening to my voice is going to say something today to somebody about this. And we start one step at a time. Small steps, small acts, simple. Start questioning the mayor. Ask the mayor of your town. That's a good place to start. And if he doesn't know, where do they go for further information? And walk that walk. One day at a time, asking people, because I want to know who's paying for the chemtrails today when the government's broke. And now we're going to be doing an earthquake big one drill. You know how many people were killed yesterday in the Philippines? This is, I'm speechless.
Well, Rick, I'm looking at an old number, and I'm sure it's greater than this. Buildings, you're talking about the Philippines, buildings have collapsed, roofs have collapsed. I'm talking about stone structures have collapsed. The death toll as of, yesterday was 110. I'm sure it's much higher than that. It was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake.
Yeah, they're talking about an 8.4. That's an 8.4 is what the exercise for the global world is right now. And these are people that actually control the weather. Wonder what this all means.
Well, Rick, what's happening is the trees are dying, and what they're finding is that there's damage to the trees on the side that faces the sky. This underside that faces the ground is not damaged the way the side that faces the sky is damaged. Kind of like if we were to spray a toxin on the leaves and limbs of trees from above. That's exactly what the symptoms show.
Well, that's your rainwater. That's why now your rainwater is no longer safe to drink. Imagine what it's doing to your crops.
I was talking with Judy Dollarhite of Dollar Value Computers, one of our instructors in Nixa, Missouri, and she was telling me, and we have not confirmed it, so I'm not going to say the location, but there are those military vehicles that are being deployed and distributed to county governments, and evidently there's evidence and talk about them already being here in certain counties in Missouri, and we'll let you know as soon as we see them, where they are, we'll report. So if you see any of those vehicles in your community class and you want to email me and send me a picture, we'll post it on the website. So that's Vincent at usaprepares.com. Vincent at usaprepares.com. And also, if you have news that you think that we need to share with this class, please send me newsworthy news. Something that would not be on mainstream. I have the mainstream news all the time, and please don't overwhelm me, but with common things. But if you find some unusual things that you think we need to know about, if you want to be a source of information for USA Prepares, please send it to me. And if you want me to use your name, I'll use your first name only. If you don't want me to use your name, tell me that, and I won't use your name. But we'd love to get the information that you have found, because Rick, you have sources that are appearing all the time, and they're sending you all kinds of information, and we really do appreciate that.
Well, so, I appreciate my lead scouts like Joey, Gino, Ray Thorne, you, some of the others that keep me. There's no way I could be, on all of this. It's just overwhelming, and yet I do totally appreciate everybody, Charles Herring, all the way in Australia, listening to you. Appreciate these inputs that help me speak out using radio and my writings.
I want to let Bud in Montana know. Bud, we're going into a commercial. When we come back from this commercial, we'll be glad to take your call. That's Bud in Montana. Just hold the line. And Rick, we've got to talk about, right after Bud's call, what's happening in the reflection of the sunlight, the global dimming. You called it early on. The crops are failing. The crops are dying. The trees are dying. And they're spraying the trees. They're spraying the atmosphere, and they're making us all sick. Dr. Richard Allen Miller will be back with us on the other side of this class, where we've been talking about Shade, the motion picture, with usaprepares.com senior instructor, Dr. Richard Allen Miller. You can get to his website, richardalanmiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. You can buy his books. You can see what he's up to. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. Bud from Montana, you're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller on usaprepares.com.
Yeah, good morning, Dr. Miller and Vince.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was listening. Normally, I never miss Dr. Miller, but on Joyce's show that plays simultaneously with you, I was listening to Marshall Masters, who is has done a lot of study on this planet coming into the solar system. And according to him, he said this is in about the next 9 months when this thing starts electrically charging, as Professor James McCanney also has said, when this planet starts coming back around and electrically charging with our Earth and with the sun, there will be huge, enormous solar discharges that will be of like biblical proportions, and he expects this in about next 9 to 12 months. My question to you is, do you think that a lot of this geoengineering with the barium and all of the different metals that they're putting up there is to somehow dissipate some of this electrical discharge from the sun?
I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you that I have not been able to get any kind of responsible answer of what they're doing and why from anyone. Have you? I mean, we know that it's barium and aluminum oxide. We know that Gore talked about it. We know that the original chemtrails were for malathion and, stuff like that. But now what the barium and aluminum oxides are for and who's funding it. There's in the military, they're talking about billions of dollars missing, unaccountable. Is that what is funding these chemtrails? Nobody has told anything about that. And that's the question. Who's paying for that?
Sure, I agree.
I don't think any. I haven't seen, as a physicist, I haven't seen any explanation that would satisfy me.
Yeah, I agree, and it also is, I think, also funding the huge underground tunnels and these huge underground cities that
there's a lot of other things going on. That, again, could be the paranoia of living underground during the biblical proportional, cosmic rays, whatever. The sun is our Father. I mean, it is essentially, in a sense, a representation of God in terms of our sustenance and ability to survive and live. I don't have those answers. That's metaphysics, beyond physics. I have worldviews and belief systems that I use as tools to try to navigate here, but I don't have those answers. I don't.
Rick,
I think it's a good
Rick,
question.
let me share.
I just don't have a clue.
It's a great question, Rick. Let me share something with you and Bud. We've been talking about aluminum oxide being dispersed in our atmosphere, and we know that it reflects the sunlight out back from whence it came. But aluminum oxide does not, in solid form, conduct electricity. Now, maybe, and when you think about if we're talking about electromagnetic radiation, if we're talking about electricity in the air, maybe one of the reasons that they're dispersing this in the air is because it does not conduct electricity.
Yeah, I don't know.
What are your thoughts, Rick?
It's right now, I know that there's an incredible, just in my own part of the world, the expenditure in these jets and the materials they're dropping. What is happening is that those materials now are into everything in our food chain. And it's with no explanation or accountability.
Bud, did you have a second part of that question you'd like to hold over for? Or?
No, I just had one other thing, and I'll hang up. I was just wondering if he thought with these things that it'll practically kill all of the crops by next year, the end of next year. And I'll hang up and listen to his response later.
All right, thanks, Bud. Hey, Rick, hold on. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. And, Rick, we've got a caller on the line. We'll be with you, Sherry, in just a minute. Bud had asked, will this phenomenon of this planet coming by, causing electricity in the air by next year, or will it by next year kill our crops? Very interesting question. But, here's something to think about. With electricity in the air, we have antennas everywhere. For example, do you have an AM, FM plug-in table radio? Well, that power cord is an antenna. Do you have a telephone that's connected with a cable or a wire to your wall outlet? That's an antenna. The microphone that I'm speaking on right now is connected to a cable to a series of electronics. That is an antenna. My headphones are connected with a cable. That is an antenna. We have antennas everywhere. They are wires that connect devices to either power or networking or something. In our homes, in our businesses, those are all antennas. And yes, they can pick up electricity from the air. As a matter of fact, Rick, when I was younger, I strung a wire between two insulators, about 125 feet long. I'm talking when maybe I was 12 years old. And I took a voltometer, and I was able to measure electricity in the air, just picked up from that piece of wire to the ground. So ground on one end, the antenna on the other end of my meter, and there's electricity that you can pick up from the air. Your thoughts, Rick?
Well, electrostatic is very common, and that's the idea of using Nikola Tesla. What I'm going to do is I'm going to research this because I'm not familiar with it, and I can't be on everything, but I will research it, and I will have some opinions next week on this because it's interesting. I'm not as worried, our Van Allen belt and the ionized layer of charged particles up there, all of that is protective of us for these very global biblical events. Mm-hmm. It will absolutely affect behavior, just like a full moon will. We have the Hunter's Moon coming up and tomorrow, and basically that's going to drive people crazy.
Rick, let's take this call. Let's take this call.
Out in the woods trying to shoot poor animals, and it's crazy what we're doing. And the way we live and the way we think. It just, I just wished. Start with the children.
Okay. Sherry from Kansas, you're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Great show. Say, we heard that there was a freak snowstorm up in South Dakota, and freak. I
heard about that, yes.
Freak being the operative word, and that it was unexpected, and I've heard anywhere from 80,000 to 100,000 cattle killed.
Yes.
I don't know that figure. That probably hasn't been reported yet. My grandson lived. So. And,
and then we hear from the guys that made Why in the World Are They Spraying, that they're trading, that these weather events affect the commodity futures. And I just wonder if anybody, if that was a deliberate event, and who made money on the commodities market.
Right.
Sherry, I'm a cattle farmer, and I was talking with some of the guys who are in the know, who are in the cattle markets, and I was thinking about selling my cows last week and this week, and I decided to hold off because of this weather-related event and other events that are weather-related. And cows are dying from famine, either last year's drought and, whether it be 10,000. I read 10,000. I read 80,000. I read 100,000 cows died because they could not get to food because the snow was so deep in this, as you said, freak blizzard. I believe the weather's being manipulated. Rick and I saw it when we were on our way, Expo number 5, which was November of last year. We were on our way from the farm to the expo in Lebanon, Missouri. Rick looked up and he saw all of this crisscross pattern of chemtrails. He said he's never seen anything like it. And then the next day, the next day we were coming home from the expo, and it started raining like crazy. We were at a restaurant, and as we were getting ready to leave, there was a tremendous rain straight down. It poured like I've never seen before. And then a few miles away, as we were driving home, we were in 3 inches of snow on a 70-degree day. And it was a small path of snow. We were in four-wheel drive. This was November in Lebanon, Missouri.
Yeah, I watched it happen, and we had your son had frogs in the set. It stopped his car because they were afraid that it was going to break windshields.
Yeah, he was. Our son was about 50 miles away from me in his vehicle, and Rick and I. My son has a four-wheel drive Dodge turbo diesel pickup, and Rick and I were in our Chevy turbo diesel, and we were in four-wheel drive. And that morning, the morning of this 3-inch snowstorm, the weather was nice. It was really nice. And all of a sudden, this storm came in. That was one. And then Expo number 6, which was July, we had Rick saw chemtrails in the sky as we were going toward the expo. And that afternoon, we had a tornado 5 miles wide, come right through Lebanon, the same place. It came through, 5 mile wide tornado, and it lifted the roof vents up off the expo hall. The rain looked like a typhoon that you see on the internet. The branches were sideways blowing. The doors were blown shut. Water was coming in through under the doors. It was unbelievable. Nobody could dare get out of the expo. And, some people attribute to they really like what we're doing, and they want to make sure we have the proof of geoengineering. But I don't know. But I can tell you that it was very, very unusual. I've never seen it before. I've never seen the chemtrails like that. And the correlation is 1.0. Chemtrails, massive weather change, unexpected.
Well,
unless you pay attention to the chemtrails.
What all these grazing animals are taking in from what...
Well, there you go. That's what I'm talking about. You're absolutely correct. That's a good reason to go vegan.
And
actually, even that's going to get weird. I personally grow my own crops now. I last year started my garden. This year, garden really put out this year, so this year I'm learning how to can. Next year, I'll learn how to eat my food that I've canned. It's a slow process.
Well, I didn't have any luck the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I didn't start gardening yesterday. I've gardened since I got out of high school, but I'm really thinking that I'm going to build a greenhouse, and I'm thinking about doing a geodesic dome and having glass on the inside and plastic on the outside to protect from the hail.
Yeah,
Sherry,
it's going to get to be a very brave new world where everyone's going to have a Geiger detector or something that monitors radiation, and probably a mass spectrometer so you can see what's in the food itself. Roundup ready, whatever. It's crazy. This world that we're going toward, it has no bounds.
Sherry, I'm on the same page you are. Mrs. Finelli has been asking me for a greenhouse for years, and I think that we need to build one to keep the airborne toxins from landing on our crops that we're growing in our garden to eat. You are absolutely correct. And you mentioned that you didn't have luck in the last 2 years growing. I've been mentioning that at our meetups, and every meetup, what I do is I welcome everybody at Ziggy's, and then I make some comments. I do a monologue, if you will, for, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes. And I talk about what I'm experiencing, and I ask questions of the class. And I've been asking, how's your garden growing? How's it growing? And how's your hay crop? And I'm hearing that just about universally, that People are saying that their garden's growing as well as mine, and that's terrible. My gardens have been growing very, very poorly, and it's not like I'm new at this either. So what I'm saying is you are absolutely right.
Well, hey, you guys, good show. I'll keep listening.
Hey, thanks.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much, Sherry.
By the way, ranchers are actually, she's correct, they're in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I just looked it up. There reports of 20 or more inches of snow and 10,000 cattle.
Well, I've read, Rick, I've read 10,000, I've read 80,000, I've read 100,000. I don't know the number, but I know that they are digging mass graves 20 feet deep to bury these cows in. Rick, we've got a caller, Carol from Missouri. You're on with Dr. Richard Allen Miller and me, Vin Finelli.
Yes, hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering, you might you might have discussed it before, maybe I missed it, but I was wondering if you thought orgonite would work to help with the chemtrails.
I don't have a solution. That's a good question. I don't know what to do. If you find a way to do it, would you please let me know also? Because I don't have a clue at this point other than try to talk about it and you calling in and talking about it and talking to other people about it to the point where it's small steps, but we can change things if enough people voiced up.
Okay, great.
Carol,
Thank you.
Carol,
yes?
Before you go, you know, if you look at Fukushima and you look at the pollution of the Pacific Ocean, it would have been a lot easier to prevent it than to clean up the Pacific Ocean.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do. And one quick question. What county are you calling from?
St. Clair.
Thanks so much, Carol. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to us?
No, just thank you for the show.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I will be right back after these few short commercial announcements. I've got more technology in front of me than I should be allowed to have. I've got 3 mice, 3 keyboards, 4 monitors, and 2 hands. It's getting tough. Rick, I'd like to share, just before we take our next call, Blue in Tennessee, we'll be right with you. The police and the military, I believe that they think that, you know what, we're part of this system, so we're going to be okay. The system is going to protect us. So if we're rough on the community, if we're rough on the general public, well, we're being told to do it, and we're following orders, so it's our job. Well, I submit to them that they're misguided. I believe that they think they are part of the system, and they think that they're being protected by the system. So whatever they do to us is okay because the system will protect them. But I remind them of Vietnam. We got killed in Vietnam. We got killed in Korea. We got killed in the Middle East. Okay? So please remember that you are not indispensable. You are dispensable. You are just part of what they're willing to sacrifice in the overall takeover of the world. You're not going to be protected by the system. You are dispensable. I'm talking about the police and the military. Of course, we are also. So we're all in the same boat. So police and military, why don't you consider switching sides and being with us and saying no to these crimes that are happening all over the United States. Blue from Tennessee, you are live with us. Dr. Richard Allen Miller on USAPrepares.com.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I found this very interesting. 2 years ago, we had some very severe storms come through our area, and it just did incredible hail damage. We'd never seen a storm like it. So they were interviewing the 3 meteorologists from the major networks on the radio. So I happened to call in because there was something that I had noticed prior to that. Is the term filtered skies. And
euphemism.
so I called them out. I called them out on that. I'm like, what is the filtered sky? Either there are clouds up there, or there's not.
Yeah, it's a new sci-fi word. We'll see it in Wired magazine next.
And so apparently that was, and they all 3 had to agree that they had been using that because Noah had directed that That's a term that no one uses now. So that would explain the way that they're trying to hide away the chemtrails.
Filtered sky, I mean.
Yeah, I have watched the chemtrails stay in the sky and watched big puffy clouds go right over the top of the chemtrails. Chemtrails don't move. They're still there. But the puffy little clouds that were at lower altitude.
Curl, and then they eventually with the rain or snow. There you go.
Blue, let me ask you this. You are in Tennessee. Have you experienced these wild weather phenomenon that we have here in Missouri, the kind that Dr. Richard Allen Miller and I have talked about when we go to the expos?
We have, we haven't had nearly as much chemtrailing. No, we're seeing more black helicopters out doing patrols, essentially. I kid you not, my daughter came inside, and she looked at me, and she goes, Mom, there were two of them. She said, there are big black helicopters out there, and they have guns on them, and they flew right over the top.
Were they flying low? Were they flying low?
Yeah. They weren't flying, as low as what you would think that they would, but it was enough for my daughter to recognize there were machine guns or guns from those helicopters.
How old is your daughter?
She's 14.
What does she think about all of this?
Well,
does she think about
my kids are a little bit more informed.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Now you're 15. Sorry.
Well, I'm interested to know what kids think because, while they're going through puberty and having to school and social growth, it's just wondering what they think.
Mine are well informed, so I send my children to school to educate the other teachers.
Blue, thanks so much for being with us.
All right, no problem.
Rick, she sends her children to school to educate the teachers, and that's what the Dollar Height family does.
Yeah,
they send their child to do the same thing.
Well,
Rick, thanks so much for being with us. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. Thanks so much, Rick.